Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Funky Marketing Show. It's actually our second season with guests, and today I have a pleasure to welcome Nicole to the Funky Marketing Show. Nicole, welcome.
Hi, thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here as well. Like basically, Nicole and I have been going like back and forth on LinkedIn in the comment sections, on my post, on her post, and talking about different things. So I decided to call her on the show to dive deeper into some of the topics. So maybe we can start with with what you do at the moment. I think that's a good start. So you work as a director of marketing at Mongoose.
Mongoose.
Am I
yep.
saying it right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm director of marketing at Mongoose. They're a higher ed software company. We actually have two softwares that we sell. One is a texting platform and the other is a chatbot. So we're just looking to help higher ed colleges and universities better communicate with students, especially, with COVID and higher ed moving much more remote and digital. We're trying to create products that help make their communication a lot more seamless. So I've been at Mongoose for only 4 months. I'm relatively new. Before that, I was working at a global manufacturing company. So it's been an adjustment going from like a giant corporation to back to like startup company, which I've been just loving so much.
So what's more interesting? I guess startup, right?
Yeah, startups. I mean, most of my background's been in startups. I just love the atmosphere and everything's like changing and evolving so quickly. And usually you can come up with an idea and just run with it rather than, in a big corporation, there's lots of silos and red tape and getting through all the big bosses to kind of get your idea off the ground. So it's much more exciting to kind of be in a startup.
So what's kind of the structure where you are at the development? So you're the director of marketing. How big is the marketing team? Do you have the sales team? How does the structure look like?
Yeah. So there's about 5 people on my team in marketing. So we're pretty small, but right now at Mongoose, they're about, I would say they started in 2011, but they're in this period where they've kind of hit a certain level and they're not sure how to kind of get to the next one and grow. And that's why I kind of came in to help them grow and scale without having to hire, like 10 more SDRs to the team. So they've been very sales focused before, and now I'm trying to help grow them into more of a, demand gen, organic marketing strategy to kind of so that we can keep the employees small, like the team smaller, but still experience that revenue growth. So when I came in, the marketing team was definitely more of like an assistant to sales. They were more treated like an agency almost, where they were just there. There's copywriter, graphic designer, and the sales team would just say, I need a 1-pager about this, go create it. And they'd create it and give it back. And there wasn't really any sort of rhyme or reason to the things they were doing other than, this is, HubSpot says that we should be doing blogs and pillar pages, and we're just going to do it because that's what we need to do. Which is, fine. But I came in and just like, look, I think we need to make marketing more of the growth engine. So I helped restructure the marketing team so it's not so just like doers. They're all like on the same level. I'm starting to kind of identify people who can help with the strategy with me and give sort of departments to my team that hopefully we can grow. So now instead of having, like copy and design and the blogger, instead I have like a brand and communications team. I have a demand generation team and then a product marketing team. And while that team is still like 1 or 2 people, I think just having those sections kind of have helped get people to see marketing in a different lens and also help my team feel empowered a little bit to be more strategic and take more initiative with the ideas that are generated at the business.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is, one of the most common mistakes that I'm seeing in the new companies when they, start, let's say, the growth as they see it with hiring salespeople. But sales usually is here to to extend the growth or to accelerate it, but marketing should actually spark the growth. Right? Usually that's how it is. Now you are into the situation when you need to turn around things and make them a little bit more different, because people are used to we go with sales, and I guess the model was get as many leads as possible so the sales people can actually call them, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when I came in, I was obviously start looking at the data and what everything is doing, and any lead that was coming in was automatically being considered an MQL. And I was like, oh my God, no, we need to fix this immediately. Like, that's not the case. And then obviously sales was very upset because anything that was coming from the website or marketing, was usually seen as a waste of time because, they weren't ready to buy yet, because we were considering an ebook download as MQL, which isn't necessarily the case. So just going in there, and I think also helping change the perspective internally as well about how marketing can be used. I'm still kind of struggling with that a little bit. It's an ongoing discussion because when you first come in, everyone's excited, you're like a new voice and they're like, yeah, let's go. And now I'm about 4 months in and they're like, well, where's all this money coming from marketing? I'm like, well, you got to give it time a little bit, like we're making changes, we're seeing good results, but by the time it hits revenue, it could be like 6 to 8 months down the road. So, we're going to get there, but it's still like a process of kind of keeping everybody on board, keeping everybody excited, even though they're not seeing it like financially just yet.
Yeah. So I guess internal communications and internal marketing has become something that's a high priority, to be able to make those kind of changes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I learned that the hard way at the large corporation at my previous job. I had a really excellent boss who helped teach me about how important internal marketing is to help get your ideas forward. I was one of those stubborn marketers that just came in and like, well, this is the way that you should do it. Like, why don't you believe me? And he helped, teach me like, oh, you need to convince everybody and get them all on the same boat with you. So now I'm a big believer, obviously, in the power of internal marketing to get your ideas forward, and being able to speak to the leadership team and your team and get them all kind of on board with what you're doing and get them excited, as well as talking to different departments. I mean, obviously getting the sales team on your side is crucial. If sales thinks that you're the bad guy, they're never going to cooperate with you. But if they think that what you're doing is going to help them, then they're going to like help you as much as possible if you're going to make their lives easier.
Yeah, I totally get it. Like when it was my first time as a GM, like I was the last one coming to the company, and the first ever GM in the company. It was like 15 people, 3 teams. But I wanted everybody to do the same what I have done to become the GM. Right. Yeah. So to learn more, to work, I didn't make them work extra hours, but I was keeping sharing like the content, education, all those other stuff. But then I realized, okay, I got the feedback, of course, the pushback. And I realized, okay, like somebody can just, come to work for 8 hours, do a good or decent job and go home. But then it's the other decision, like, do you want those kind of people in the team? So
right.
It's all learnings at every step of the way.
Exactly. Yeah, I still, that's something I'm still learning how to do as a leader, is like, how do you figure out people's different working styles? And that doesn't have to be your way. I mean, you're probably the same as me, it sounds like, where you're like a high performer, you're ready to go, you thrive off of, like achieving a lot and work. But that's not necessarily the case. And you also necessarily don't want all those kind of people on your team, because you don't want people who are always just kind of vying for your job. You want other people who can help, keep the boat going and who are just happy to like, I'm going to do my 8 hours and I'm going to do my best in those 8 hours. And that's all I can offer. And I think that's something that most leaders, marketing or otherwise, have to learn how to balance for sure. Because then, like you said, maybe there's some people who aren't necessarily the right fit for whatever company culture there is, if there is kind of that, grind culture where you have to come in and do the work longer than 8 hours.
Yeah. I mean, like working in a new company or a startup, like
Right.
basically you have to be, you have to have that mindset that your role is going to change, and maybe it's going to change really fast, the things that you're doing and a level on which you're doing. It also means that you need to learn a lot to be able to perform on all those, different positions that you're going to get.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure you feel the same when you're looking at new hires, but sometimes like I'll come in and someone will say, you're at a startup, and someone will say, well, that's out of my job scope. And you're like, well, your job scope changes depending on what's needed because there's 3 of us on this team. So you don't really want someone with that kind of mentality. You want someone who's like, yes, let's go. I'm going to do whatever is needed. But then they'll probably see a higher career trajectory because of that.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, I'm not the best at hiring. I'm still learning. Like the first hire ever that I got is the first person that I fired. Just to kind of bring the perspective.
Good learning perspective. Yep.
Yeah, but even then, like the owners of the company told me, like, we won't get into the process. Like, it's you who are deciding. It's we can give you an advice of what you need to do to fire somebody, what you need to do to hire somebody, but it's up to you. So I learned a lot of things. I had a lot of freedom when I was on my first decision-making position, and luckily for that, like, I am where I am now, but the company was slowed down a little bit because of that. Like, when I look at things, I still make mistakes. One thing that I learn is that I need people with the right mindset, because we depend a lot on what we are doing on LinkedIn, or it's something that we learn how to do on other platforms as well. We learn how to do it for the clients, but I need people who already have that mindset that they need to share. They need to be constantly learning those kind of things. But then it's not the only thing. So
yeah, it's definitely easier to kind of, especially when you're just starting to grow the company and you need that growth, being able to talk to people and be like, this is what I'm trying to do. And they're like, yes, let's go. And you don't have to, like, I guess, stay on them as much to get them to get going, because, you probably have 8,000 things to do, especially as a founder, and you just want to be able to tell someone, like, this is the direction I'm going, and they can just take it and run with it. Having people like that on your team is just so helpful and allows you to free up your time to be more strategic, be able to understand what's going on, see trends, see where there's holes or opportunities that we could be filling.
yeah, exactly.
Definitely useful.
So tell me. So you needed to align sales and marketing around one thing, and you did that with sales goals, right? The both teams, and it's kind of interesting perspective. We are hearing a lot of different stuff, and we are doing for our clients a lot of different kind of alignments. Like there's an example, like Kyle Lacey, what he did in Lessonly. It's everything is under the CMO or under the marketing, all the teams, but they are focused like let's get to the revenue first. Then we have 20% of the budget to kind of experiment and do a lot of different stuff. So they do a lot of B2C stuff. Over there, there's a situation when the alignment is under the chief revenue officer, but in your case, it's alignment is on the sales goals, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the only thing. I think just because when I came in, it was so separated, and we have quarterly goals that we set for each department as well as the company. And the marketing goals were so just kind of tasks. They were like, oh, write 3 blogs, produce a video. And I'm like, no, I want to have
not result oriented, right?
Right, exactly. So I've been switching that where I'm like, okay, no, it's going to be increase LinkedIn engagement by 20% this quarter. Like, that's a metric that I want to see increase. But then just because I am still teaching my team that revenue is a part of marketing's goals as well. I did, sales came in and they were saying that they have like, they want to hit a certain number of new demo requests coming in. And so I asked them, I was like, do you mind if marketing shares that goal with you? So then it's not just like, sales generated demo requests. It's just in general, like, let's share this number together. Because I do want my team to start seeing how their efforts are tying to the actual revenue in the business. So I do believe that, because your post that you posted, I believe it was yesterday, about it should be aligned and not the same. I agree with it. I mean, you've run into trouble when marketing is only responsible just for the revenue, because then you only do short-term performance marketing type metrics. But it is definitely a balance. And as we both know with LinkedIn and brand building, like there's a huge benefit to doing that long-term strategy as well, that might not necessarily be able to directly attribute to revenue. So it is a little bit of a balance right now for my team to kind of shift their mindset to this new growth and to also get sales on my side, that we're in this together. I wanted to just share exact same goals with the sales team. But then at the same time, my team also has other goals that are a little bit more brand building focused.
Yeah, I guess you needed to do that because, at least that's how I see it. When you start building, the alignment and everything, you go with the thing that can get you the core revenue first. So
Yeah.
in your case, I guess, you already have the sales team that's been working for a while and they know what they're doing. Marketing is still in the building, right? So
Yep.
so it was easier to, kind of share the perspective, like these guys, this is what they're getting, you can help them get there, and then you will slowly create your part of the pipeline and contribute to those goals as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a good way for the rest of the company to see marketing as a different type of way rather than an assistant, because I still do run into that a little bit where marketing's a little bit on the afterthought. They're kind of just make it pretty, So I think by tying in some goals that other bigger departments just helps people see marketing in a different way. But then it also helps me prove my worth and prove like these new changes that I'm making are the right changes. So then when maybe in a year I have something that's a little bit more outlandish, that's not something that I can attribute directly to revenue, they'll trust me and be like, yeah, let's go with that, because clearly what you're doing is working. That's the hope, at least.
Yeah, I mean, that's the good bet.
Right.
Why I'm saying bet, just for the people, because in startups, everything is, is a bet. You're basically throwing things out, seeing what's working. But as you already have some background experience, or you have a person in the team that's have the background experience, then you know what are some things that could work. So you know what to throw out there. And,
yeah, exactly.
And that's the best as it gets.
Yes. I mean, yeah, startups, everything is always changing, and then the direction changes, or, new hires or new teams or what have you, that's the fun of a startup. So hopefully my bet works.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. So tell me, what are some of the things that you've done as you started to work, in the company? It might be interesting because you are just 4 months over there, kind of the steps, how it went. And I guess, also the target group is interesting. I don't
Yes.
think we talk very often about companies that are targeting that target group.
Yeah. I mean, when I first came in, again, I looked at the data, what we're doing, what's working, and I broke down the funnel and broke it down to see like what marketing sources were attributing new deals. And so obviously you come in and you saw like, organic, direct, referral were top ones. But then I also noticed that there were quite a high number of conversions from people who attended our webinars. So I was like, oh, I think that's kind of a low-hanging fruit that I think we can do better. That's going to just quickly bring in some new MQLs, SQLs, and fill our pipeline. So my first thing that I did was revamp how we approach our webinars, just because I'm like, this is one thing that I can do now that's going to have quick effects that people can see. And then we can keep going while I kind of fix those harder things to fix that aren't going to be so immediate. So how we were approaching webinars before was it was pretty much a sales call over Zoom. We had our sales team come on, I mean, they were great. They're very knowledgeable, but it was very product focused, featured focused, like, here's what we can do for you kind of thing. And so I came in, I'm like, let's just shift the perspective of this a little bit and make it much more customer focused than product focused. Like, what do our customers care about? What are they asking our customer success team all the time? What are those objections that we're always hearing from prospects? And let's create some content around that. So one of the most frequent questions we get at Mongoose is about texting policies. Like, is it okay to text a student? Like, do they have to opt in? You know, texting's a very weird kind of messaging system that people aren't as familiar with, especially when it comes to students and high school students. You know, you're kind of like, what's okay, what's not. So we have some very, very knowledgeable subject matter experts on our team, which I'm super thankful for. I'm just utilizing them like crazy. So I was like, hey, do you guys want to jump on a webinar and we'll have someone like facilitate it, but you pretty much just kind of talk about these frequent questions. So they're like, yeah, we're going to do this. I had my demand gen team, who's fantastic, kind of come in and do a great promotion on LinkedIn. We use some of our employees to post on their own LinkedIn, you know, get that subject matter experts out there. And we ended up we only had 1,000 seats on our Zoom at the time, and we booked it in probably like 2 days. And so we had to open up another webinar for the next week, and we still like booked that as well. So it was just insanely successful. I was even surprised it was that successful in the first try. So now it's just about, you know, now my CEO is like, okay, well, where's the deals? Where's the revenue coming through? And I'm like, well, you know, this got us probably like a 300% increase in new leads. But like I said, not all leads are an MQL. So now we're working on how do we start scoring them? What do we consider an MQL versus an SQL versus a lead? So that's kind of like the next step that we're doing with that. But that was the first thing I did when I came in, was just the webinar. And then also restructuring the team. I think the first couple months at this job was me figuring out their strengths, figuring out their weaknesses, and figuring out where I can put them where they'll be the most successful. So it's a little bit of the less fun side of marketing leadership, but it's helped me tremendously. I've already seen a shift in like the amount of output, their efforts, and their willingness to kind of do new things.
Yeah, sounds good. That's actually the way I'm thinking right now, like crafting an offer for a potential client, because like the CEO is used to having MQLs. So I'm like, okay, in the first month, until we educate the CEO and others around him, because like the employees know what are the you know, that they should go after SQLs and, you know, those kind of things, but the CEO needs to be educated. Yep. So probably in the first month, we need to focus on just getting more MQLs so we have the results. And then we can, you know, talk about how we can make that transition, you know, from those. But I had a conversation a few days ago on this podcast with Andrej Zinkovic, and he was sharing actually what he was doing with the MQLs from the webinars. He did the same thing as you did, you know, covering, you know, the pain points or the biggest objections and those kind of things. And then like he created kind of a hub with all the materials, presentations, possibly some, you know, some other files. Mm-hmm. And then they are following who is consuming the content. And then those who are consuming the content, they go to sales. So basically it's an additional step that qualifies them even more.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. I've in the past done a little similar where I've done like a webinar series. This was at my previous job, and it was very popular. And at the end, we sent them to a private Facebook group, and we created like a little mini community for this specific sector. And that in that group, we were like, oh, we'll provide you with exclusive content and you can talk directly with the trainer. And that was really, really successful. And then we just had this little mini community of our target audience. I mean, it was very niche, like it was maybe like 1,500 people, but it was like exactly the people who we wanted to sell our products to. And we had all the communication directly to them without having to worry about, competitors, them deleting our emails. So I love that idea of a hub though, also. I think that's a really smart way to keep them engaged after the webinar.
Yeah, because it's a group when you are with them daily.
Yeah, exactly. And you always do need to have some sort of action after a webinar. I think that's something that a lot of people miss. Like you have all these captive audiences with you, and right before you do a Q&A, when most people kind of start dropping off, you need to do something where you can get them to your website, get them to view your product page, whatever it is. Like it's a crucial step that I think a lot of people tend to miss with webinars. You do all this effort to get all these people here, and then you don't get them to do an action.
Yeah. Topics that I love are webinars, because like my ex-CEO is the person who has done, I think, the more than 2,000 webinars. And yeah, because we've been doing like online conference, I think the first one in this ex-Yugoslavia space, but so we have even 10 webinars by the conference, so like a warm-up.
Wow.
And then we lowered them to 5, but from the start it was 10. It was 2 months of webinars.
Wow.
And it got us a lot of like free content. And also when I started Funky Marketing, it was beginning of the lockdown during pandemia, and like I just threw out 5 free webinars, and I got 500 subscribers, and that's how I started with Funky Marketing, basically with gathering the audience.
I know a lot of people are like, we're all webinar out, we're all zoomed out after the pandemic. But I mean, I was doing webinars for marketing prior to the pandemic, which has helped me be able to carry those skills when everybody wants to do webinars. But I mean, I'm still seeing success in them. I mean, they can be a little bit of a beast to get off the ground a bit. But I mean, if you have the right content and you're targeting the right people, like you're going to see success. I think that webinars are still highly successful.
Yeah, I agree. So did it help you, convince CEO about the importance of marketing, or you needed to do some other stuff as well?
Yeah, no, everybody loved it. Our sales team loved it because I still make sure to figure out ways, even though, all the registrants aren't going to be SQLs, MQLs, but I figured out a way to get hot leads, like people who are extra interested in what we're talking about. Usually at the end of a webinar, I'll have like a free asset or like some demo offer where I'm like, are you interested in seeing this? Yes or no? And anybody who clicks yes, I send directly to our SDRs and say, these are the hot people, like follow up on them. And they were so thankful for all of the leads we gave them. They're just like, oh my gosh, my pipeline's so full. This is fantastic. Like everyone I talked to is like loving our stuff. So the sales team is like, they're on board. They're ready to go. They're asking, can we do more webinars? Of course. My CEO, he liked it. He was shocked by it, but of course he's, entrepreneurial CEO. So he's like, okay, well, what's next? Like, why aren't we, where's the revenue? Where's the SQLs? Like, how do I track this? Like, he's already like 3 steps ahead. And I'm like, there's like a little bit of praise and celebration, but it's always like, okay, like carry on to the next step. How are we going to like expand this further? So, but that's typical, I think, with most kind of entrepreneurial founders.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta know what they are looking at, which metrics are the most important for them.
Yeah, exactly. He's been great though, because he is a little new, to this demand gen type of marketing strategy that I'm pushing. But instead of how most CEOs would be like, no, I know more about marketing than you do. You need to follow how it's always been done. He's been very open to learning more about it. So while he's asking questions, it's just because he's curious and he wants to learn more. And he actually, after the webinar, asked if we could just sit down and have lunch and I could just educate him on demand gen trends and what people are doing and why suddenly I'm posting all over on LinkedIn. It's more out of curiosity and him wanting to be knowledgeable. So he feels like he can speak to me directly about it. And I want him to understand more too, because I'm not from this higher ed industry. I kind of just have bopped around, and he is from this higher ed industry. So it'd be great to have his knowledge of the industry to work within the marketing strategy so we can do it better.
Yeah, agreed. That's a good fit. I mean, having the CEO that is willing to learn and understand, it's a great asset to have next to you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm thrilled. Like, I've worked for CEOs who think that they're God's gift to marketing, and I've worked with CEOs similar to my current CEO, and it's definitely so much more useful when you have a CEO who trusts you and is willing to learn, but also like you have to be okay with them poking holes in your strategy as well, and being okay to have kind of some critical feedback. So it's been great so far.
Yeah, sounds good. And when we think about like from you then down below to the sales, to the marketing team, like how did they accept you as a leader? So I guess, I mean, looking at my perspective or other companies that I'm working with, because we are, in most cases, we are working with directors of marketing or CMOs. So the challenge is more or less, the same. On one side, they have the CEO, which demands, results. On the other side, that you need to build a brand long term, and then you have the team where you need to prove kind of that you are the leader that they should follow.
Yeah, it's definitely a hard one. And I mean, I think how I approached it at first was I tried to look at what are the pain points that they're experiencing every day. And what I saw was they were constantly on like what I call like a hamster wheel, where they were always busy. They could never catch up. The deadlines were always looming, and they were always like writing what needed to be done for the next day that day. And it was always feeling like urgent. Anything that kind of got thrown in was just like chaos. So I'm like, all right, let's see how we can get you guys off this hamster wheel, so that you have that space to be creative, to look for new ideas, to kind of look into data, because no one was looking into data. No one was looking into trends. They were just getting it out because it had to get out. So I looked at the processes that we had in the background. I found some ways to improve them. I'm pretty good at being able to see like a process from beginning to end and figuring out where there's inefficiencies. So I looked at those and was like, okay, let's tweak this a little bit. And then also talking to the team individually and getting to know them a little bit. And then figuring out how I can position them in spots where they're going to feel the most confident also helped. So for example, we had two people who had a very vague title of just like content production specialist. Like they're tweaked a little bit, but they both were kind of like, I don't really know what the difference between our two titles are really, because I think whoever created the titles didn't really get marketing very well. So I was like, okay, well, let's talk through like what parts of your jobs do you like? What parts don't you like? And I found out that the one just really loves producing content, writing, video, really as a production specialist, where the other one more likes the social media, the PR, the like planning side of things. And so I've helped separate their jobs and their responsibilities so that they don't feel like they're competing with each other, and that they're more teammates with each other. And I think that helped them everyone feel a little more secure in their roles and in their jobs. And then it also helps them understand where their future can be moving forward. So now I'm trying to show them, here's what we have now, here's what I want to build, here's where you can be, but you have to kind of prove yourself to get up to that new spot that I want to develop.
Sounds good. So you basically needed to get to know them, get to know the process, and then see where they fit in the process, and kind of like create the next steps through which they can go to get to their goals, which will also be the company's goal.
Yeah. And then, getting them on board with my strategy has been, I mean, after I did the webinar, like at first they were like, oh, another webinar. And then they were shocked by how many registrants kind of came on, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, this is great. And so having some like mini successes has been really useful so that it kind of proves my worth and proves what I'm talking about works.
Yeah, sounds good. I remember when I was in that kind of situation, I did all the same as you did, and they were trying to do the same things, but like couldn't get the results. Somehow, like they couldn't hit, the engagement or the other things. They were trying really hard. So they say, okay, so why don't you do it and show us the way it can be done? So I wrote an article, and I think it got like 50,000 people reading it. And, I think around 200, 300 people liking, reacting, those kind of things. So they're like, oh, it actually works, so
He knows what he's talking about.
yeah, but but there was that challenge, and I think like all of us as leaders at one moment in our careers, at least one, we get into the position when we need to show that we know how to do the jobs, right?
Yeah,
That's kind of
exactly. I mean, that's because obviously LinkedIn is huge, and I've been, I would say, a LinkedIn tourist for a very long time, where, I'm on LinkedIn, I haven't really posted. I'm hearing all the things about how great it can be to post on LinkedIn. And obviously I want my sales leaders to be on LinkedIn, my subject matter experts to be on there, cultivating more awareness and being seen as experts in the higher ed industry. And so I was talking to my team about, we need to be doing more on LinkedIn, and they weren't quite grasping like what I was trying to get. So I just decided I'm gonna just do it myself, and I'm gonna post on my own LinkedIn how I want them to post and figure this out and just show. And I was expecting to be like, okay, look, my first post of the month, I got 2 likes, and they were from my mom and my friend, and then by the end of the month, I'm starting to get like 10 or 20 likes, and they're from these other people that are in this industry. And the amounts of success that I had in that month, like, blew me out of the water. I wasn't even expecting that. I mean, the relationships I cultivated, I mean, me and you met through that. All these different communities that I've kind of gotten involved in. It's just been crazy. And so now I'm known as the LinkedIn girl at my company. And so even if people aren't from my company commenting or liking on my posts, they're seeing it and they're talking about it. And then I have a few people who are coming up to me now, and they're like, how do I start talking about this? And I'm like, oh, perfect. Just exactly what I was hoping that you'd come and ask me for. So now I have a group of people who are eager to kind of start that strategy with me. So now we're putting that plan together on how we're going to attack that.
Yeah, that's good. I think people need, first somebody who will lead them, and then they need a support system to kind of, start with that. Because I think LinkedIn is just like what's happening inside the company. It shows on LinkedIn. It's not like the other way around.
Yeah, exactly. And I think most people are just afraid to post, that they're going to look dumb, or they're going to look like they don't know what they're talking about. So that's the one issue I'm having with my team who do want to contribute. They're so worried about like putting their thoughts out there. But until you do it and you just start like, I'm going to just put it out, it might flop, it might be great, like we'll just see. I think it becomes less scary. So at first I'll probably have to hold their hand a little bit, probably write some of the copy for them, or like I saw someone say they interview their subject matter experts and then come up with posts for them based on their interview. So it's a little bit more in their voice. And I think giving them some of those posts at first will help. And then as they feel more confident, hopefully they'll be able to just post themselves.
Yeah, sounds good. So let's get to one of your recent posts. When it was interesting to me, you said that, you actually asked, is inbound marketing strategy outdated, or
Yes.
it isn't? So like, would you share with me like what were your thoughts at the moment, and what caused the post, and how do you see the situation?
Yeah, I mean, I just thought a little controversial post might get some engagement, which it did. I had a little heated conversations in my comments, but it was all good commentary. I just think that, we still kind of follow that inbound model that HubSpot put out probably like 10 years ago, and which is it worked really, really well, and it still does work well. But I just think that it just needs to be updated for how people buy today. I mean, the old school kind of inbound model, it's funny that I call it old school now. It kind of is in the belief that you're like, oh, I need a texting software. I'm going to go to Google and put in best texting softwares for higher ed, which, might be the case, but most likely you're going to go to like a Facebook group or go to Clubhouse or go to LinkedIn group or wherever you kind of know there's higher ed people and put, what texting platforms do you guys use? And a lot of the buying behavior is changed so much, but yet we still kind of create marketing strategies based off old buying behaviors. So for me, I think organic isn't top of the funnel anymore. I think it's more middle of the funnel, and you should be building your SEO strategy with the middle of the funnel in mind versus thinking you're going to get new people from these like long form question queries. And instead looking at how do I put my content and my thoughts and my expertise out into the areas that people already are. So I guess I wouldn't say I think it might be outdated actually, but I just think it's not irrelevant. It just needs updating. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, definitely this is, the MQL model that HubSpot has been talking about. But especially when we are in the age when we are constantly creating new things, new software, so custom solutions for this, for that, new products, and a lot of those things are new. So if we ask people what do they think about it, they will say just based on the things that they know. Mm-hmm. And since your product is not existing yet, they cannot know that something like that exists. So they will give you an answer based on what they know. And if they don't get the solution for the problem that they are having, they will be pissed off. But you created the product because that solution isn't working. Yeah. Right? So you need to create the new demand. A new demand doesn't mean like going after the existing keywords. It means doing something different. And making people talk with each other, creating community, listening to to frustrations, to what the old school, what makes them stay up at night, those kind of things. But yep. It's actually like that, and making people talk with each other, and then basically that's how you go. And that's the start from creating the demand. Now, are you going to do it with this channel, with this platform? It all depends on the target groups and of all those other things. But it's something that's new. I mean, I don't know who's actually. Maybe there are people, but I doubt that there are many people Googling, texting software for higher education. Right.
Yeah. I mean, because our other software, which is the chatbot, something that we keep coming up against is, higher ed isn't the most, I guess, technically advanced. They're usually like following the trends. So, they are just starting to come into like the possibilities of adding chatbots to their websites. But our chatbot is more than just like an FAQ bot or a live chat. It's kind of an AI chatbot that can kind of bring you through like a conversational flow, depending on who you are. You can retarget people based on who they are. So like you could treat parents different than students, different than high school prospects or alumni. And the issue that we keep coming up against is that our customers don't really understand why they need all of these different things, or they don't really understand the benefits of them. And they just keep coming up and they're like, well, I just need something that's going to like answer their questions. And that's all I want. And this option is way cheaper than yours so I'm going to go with this one. So there needs to be a level of education that's kind of above that top of funnel, where they don't even know that there's a problem, and you need to educate them that there's a better solution out there before they even start thinking about the chatbot. Because what we're just running into now is we need to educate them prior to them even coming to our sales team, where they're just like, I need all of this great stuff on your website, on my website, because it's going to help me hit my admissions goals. It's going to make me be able to service my students in a better way than I can right now. And it's going to ease my time, you know, because they're usually time strapped. So we need to get them already convinced that this chatbot is like going to solve all these issues for them before they even come to sales. And there is that kind of like top of the funnel, like pre-funnel, like stage of things that I think most people are kind of missing when they're doing their inbound marketing strategy. They just think, oh, they already know, they're going to check for a chatbot and they're going to just come in and look for a chatbot. But in reality, we're giving them a completely different product that they don't even realize is going to solve all these issues.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. I usually use in this case, I use the example from B2C. Like if you want to sell to someone a flower pot to put on their balcony, basically you need to first start with, you know, you will have a lovely balcony to drink coffee at. Then you need the table, you need the picture on the wall, you need the carpet, you need to paint it a little bit, you know, those kind of things, and then you come to the flower pot. So
Exactly.
it's all the way over there, so they can imagine it. They can, you know, convince themselves that it is what they're in need of, and then they start the journey. But in your case, it's also, you know, the long sales cycles,
Yes.
as I can guess. So a lot of people in working in higher education are, you know, people who have like some way of thinking which is maybe not that, you know, techy or not innovative in that way, and it needs a lot more content, trust, and, you know, those kind of things, so they can even start thinking about it in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just like your example, you had to show them what it could be, what the reality could be like. Because once people kind of get into the chatbot and they can see what it does, then they want to do more, and then they want to expand. And like everyone's very happy once they get there, but convincing them to get there and that this is what's needed and it can just like help you so much with everything that you're looking to do is the hurdle that I get to try to get over with my marketing and our approach and our strategy. So that's kind of where I was thinking with that post, kind of bring it back, was I was just thinking, you know, my team in the past had been approaching this with the basic inbound model, and they were creating, you know, pillar pages and doing blogs and case studies that were gated. And they just weren't really seeing, they were very struggling with getting this chatbot excitement and attention and the right people who are going to convert. And so it just made me think, you know, I think maybe the inbound model is outdated and we need to start talking about how we need to upgrade the inbound model to kind of adapt to how people buy today. Because especially with B2B, I think people tend to still think that like it's business to business, I know, but like it's still a person. And so however you purchase software or look for things is exactly how your customers are. And we shouldn't be treating them differently than how you are. So the best way to think like, is my strategy the right one, is think, would you go through those hoops to get to that software?
Yeah, and basically think the way we are buying things. You know, before we go to Google, we will think, you know, who is the person? Do I know the person that can get me to what I want to buy? Right. And then you might go to Google, you know, to compare the prices or to see what else is out there. You know, is the person actually telling you the truth? You know, those kind of things. But that's only the second step. That's why, you know, we are all on LinkedIn, creating trust, creating these podcasts, like videos, so people can get to know us. I always tell people, you know, like you need to, I mean, you don't need to, but it would be good if you are the person who can create videos, for example, that you can, you know, show the accent, the way you smile, the way you talk, you know, that you are confident in what you are actually selling. Mm-hmm. That's a lot, especially, I don't know, in your case, but in our case, like when we start working with companies, we have at least 3 agencies already work with a company, and they either didn't perform well, or, you know, after some time the quality of the service went down, or they try to implement the same template for every company, and then you are not coming with zero, you're coming with minus. So you need to, go from that minus to the level 0 before the discovery call.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, humanizing your brand is huge, and especially B2B. Like, I think everybody tends to think like, oh, I have to be, corporate and stock images and blend in. And it's a little bit the same in higher ed. I found like everyone thinks, it's higher ed, you have to be very serious, it's educational. But then I look at my competitors and everyone's posting the same stock image and talking the same way. And I'm like, humanizing and bringing some personality to your brand just because you're B2B is actually a huge benefit in putting faces to your brand. So you don't feel like you're just talking to a logo. I mean, I'm finding new ways to use my employees to be on the faces of things, like getting them to be associated with Mongoose, because I just think it helps you stand out. It helps it seem a little less intimidating, so that if there is someone who's interested in the chatbot, but just feels like, they're not really that knowledgeable, they're not going to be afraid to come and talk to us about it. They're going to be like, oh, I've seen Nicole posting about this on LinkedIn and she seems friendly and approachable. So I'm going to like call up and see like, oh, can I talk about this chatbot because I have questions about it? I think there's we're seeing this trend with people on LinkedIn and more B2B companies doing this approach where you are putting a human face to a B2B company, and the companies that are doing that are really successful.
Yeah, and it's a great example because it shows that you don't need to do something extreme, like Gong is doing, or some other companies when they organize the huge Zoom party and talk about the lyrics on the LinkedIn page. You can just be yourself, be human, because I think at the end that's the biggest differentiator.
Yeah, definitely. And I think people appreciate it. Like, you don't have to put on a facade, like just be yourself, show who you are, show what you're all about. And most people will be receptive to that.
Yeah, guys, I think now you need to go and, follow all the Nicole and all Mongoose team to see, how they will rise on LinkedIn in time.
Keep your eye out. Hopefully we'll just be everywhere soon.
Yeah, Nicole, thank you for this. Is there anything that we didn't talk about and that you want to tackle?
No, I mean, this has been great. I really appreciate you inviting me to come speak on your podcast. I could just talk about marketing strategy all day long. So this has been a fantastic time and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, so tell people where they actually can go and find you except LinkedIn, right?
Well, actually, it is just LinkedIn. I just post on there for my own personal benefit. I just enjoy kind of interacting with people. And so feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, Nicole Gates, at Director of Marketing at Mongoose. I have a pretty generic name, so there might be more of me. But yeah, I mean, just reach out, DM me and comment on my posts. I just love talking to people about marketing and strategy. It's all just me out there building a community.
Yeah, sounds good. Guys, don't be shy. Feel free to reach out to Nicole. She's willing to share her lessons and learnings and knowledge as well. So thank you all for being here for another episode of the Funky Marketing Show. We actually renamed it from the podcast to the show. Now I'm still new in
adjusting.
Adjusting, because there's one thing I think we didn't talk about it with the guest, but we are all jumping out of the TV when the show is out. So that's why it's actually the show. But thank you, Nicole. Thank you guys for being here, and see you next week on another podcast.
Thank you.